Okay, back again, Unit 5, Lecture 5, and this time we're dealing with the second unintended consequence. And this time, so again, just to contextualize, the intended consequence of socialization is a conscience, your sense of right and wrong that will exhibit or exert social control over you so that you go about your life conforming. First unintended consequence that we saw last time was that you develop a personality, a habitual way of conducting yourself. This time we're going to go, I think, a step deeper, and what we're going to talk about is your identity. Identity, is not who you are. Your identity is your idea of who you are. Remember back when we dealt with symbols in the symbolic universe, we dealt with the symbol me. Me as a thing that holds meaning to myself. And what we're talking about when we talk about me is your identity, your idea of who you are. What we're going to do is deal with a sociologist whose name was Charles Horton Cooley, and he came up with a theory about how identity develops called the looking glass self. It's a really straightforward, simple theory. It's got 4 steps, or at least we're going to deal with it in 4 steps. Looking glass, just because you weren't born in like the year 1900. Looking glass is an old-timey term for a mirror. And he wrote this actually around 1900, so it's been around for a long time, but it's kind of stood the test of time, and it's got an intuitive sense to it. So here's basically the 4 steps of the looking glass self. First of all, you do things. You are out in the world and you're acting in certain ways. First, this starts out mostly in your home, but then it expands to playgrounds and schools and other social situations where it's not just your parents. You do things is step 1, and then people react to them is step 2, which of course they do. You make your bed and your parents tell you good job. That's you did something and they reacted. You pushed a kid on the playground and they shoved you back. You did something, they reacted. You do things, they react. Now here's where it becomes interesting. You interpret their reactions as comments on yourself. So in other words, what's going on in the interaction is happening physically in real time or verbally in real time. But your mind, remember, is an amazing and unconscious symbol interpreter. And so it sees those behaviors or hears those words and interprets them. And it attaches them to yourself, which is step 4. You interpret their reactions as comments on yourself, and then step 4, you attach those interpretations to the symbol me. In other words, you act, they are the mirror to you. You see yourself reflected back in their reactions, and then you learn things about yourself. And that's it. The problem with this is that it's horrible. It's inevitable, but it's horrible because who are these people? I mean, hopefully your parents cared enough about you to try to reflect back positively about you and to separate out what you did from who you are. But kids are not great at separating those things out. Not to mention the fact that once you go beyond your family, how many kids at the playground or at school really cared about your self-development? Of course they didn't. In other words, what we have here is a process that is going on that developed evolutionarily among 100 people who all had a vested interest in you turning out a certain way because they needed to be able to count on you. The kids at the playground don't need you. The kids in your middle school don't need you. The kids in your high school don't need you. None of these people rely on you for their own survival. They don't have to care about what you think about yourself, which is a major problem because this is how we evolved to understand and come to conclusions about ourselves. So what you get here is an idea of who you are. And when I say an idea of who you are, I want to be really clear. It's everything you think about yourself. you got from other people, some of whom were jerks, some of whom were idiots. Think about not just in terms of the middle school bullies that we had to deal with, but the average middle school math teacher in America. America's horrible at math. The average middle school math teacher in America doesn't have a bachelor's degree in math, doesn't even have a minor in math. And yet, when that person gives me back a test that says D on it, what am I to do with this? What I'm going to do is get their reaction, which is, you sucked at this test. And I'm probably going to attach that meaning to me. I'm not that good at math. Well, you know what? Maybe. But maybe the problem was the agent of socialization that I was dealing with wasn't good at giving feedback on math, wasn't good at teaching me math in the first place. My idea of myself as lousy at math, in this case, is based on a person who wasn't all that good at math to begin with. If I could be objective about this, which of course you can't when you're a kid, if I could be objective about this, I could be like, I reject that mirror. I'm going to go look for somebody else. The violin teacher who told me I should not be playing violin, that I should take up sports instead. Yeah, maybe, but also maybe you weren't that good of a teacher. Maybe had you been more patient, maybe I wouldn't think of myself as a person who can't play violin. But I showed her because I can play guitar now. The coach who cut me from a team, what that is doing is telling me, and again, this isn't like so everybody should always get positive feedback. That's not the point. But the point that had I received different feedback from the coach who cut me, maybe I would have a different understanding of myself and my ability to, play whatever the sport is. Main idea here is the ideas that you have about yourself, your identity. I'm not telling you it's wrong. I'm telling you where it came from was not reliable sources. If you had been in a situation where you had different agents of socialization, a different pool of people who were giving you feedback, you might have different ideas about yourself, about what you're good at. That's an important thing to think about because, and this is going to be, again, straying into Uncle Chris mode, it's really never too late to be like, that idea I had that I wasn't that good at math, which just saying you like math or don't like math, it doesn't matter to me. But when a person decides they don't like math, they are eliminating a bunch of interesting, high-paying jobs that could be something that they would love to do. But once you make the decision, I'm not good at X, you start cutting off the possibility of ways of you expressing yourself. And I think that's a serious problem. Again, to take us back, because I think we're at the end of this identity self-help talk thing, this is not an intended consequence. Your agents of socialization didn't set out to give you the identity that they gave you, which is a little bit disturbing because there was no game plan. It was happening without anybody really, maybe, hopefully your parents, but nobody else really thinking through what is the person that I'm shaping with my reactions right now. This is an unintended consequence. The point was for you to get feedback and learn the way society is supposed to happen. But first consequence is that you develop a personality. That's an unintended consequence. The second one is you develop ideas about yourself. That's an unintended consequence as well. And with both of those, to close, I would say it could very well have been otherwise if it would have been different people or a different society. And so to the extent that you think, I really wish it would have been different, there is nothing wrong with you just being like, well, okay, then I'm going to just do this for myself. Yeah, it's fictional, but our entire society's fictional, right? I mean, there's nothing natural about this stuff. So go ahead and make yourself a better fictional life than the fictional life you have right now. True story. Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. He had this existential crisis when he was graduating high school, and he went to a Buddhist monk, and he was like, "Man, I just feel like everything is just fake. Everybody's fake." And the Buddhist monk said, "Yeah, That's true. So given that, what are you going to do? And Rivers Cuomo said, well, I guess I'm going to be a rock star then. And then Weezer happened. So take that for what it's worth. All right, I will see you in the next video where I probably won't reference Weezer, and we will talk about, what will we talk about? We will talk about what happens when you don't go along with society. So I'll see you then.